All right. Technology is fixed. We are good to go. Got a lot of people in here already. All right. So let's go. We got a big show, man. All right. Welcome into the Bite Me podcast. We got Caleb back in the saddle. We got Scott back in the saddle, and Captain Dean is on drugs as we speak. Well, actually, he's probably not. I think he's driving to Austin. Got a little. Did he say what his procedure was? Can we say it, or are we just violating HIPAA laws? I don't know. Anyway, something about a hernia. Let's just leave it right there, and we'll move on the Bite Me podcast. But lots to cover. And you know what I'm going to start with? First of all, I'm always going to start with this. We get so many new listeners every week or every so often. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast. Podbean, you can subscribe there. And I always like to promote that one. Unpaid endorsement. It's just where we have the podcast and host the podcast. But you can listen to literally every single episode we've ever done. They've all been transported over there. Go back 4 years or more, and you can listen there. But really, anywhere you get your podcast, on iTunes, on Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcast. And of course, the Bite Me group page was big this week. The Bite Me group page, let's see, 1, 2, 3, at least 3 of our questions came from the group page. But let's start with this. Let's talk about customer service. It's a good thing to talk about right now because I'm going to shout out my guys right here. We know that when they're on their boats, Captain Scott and Captain Dean and Captain Caleb are always having customer service is always worth a few laughs, and they do a great job. But I meant to mention this last week. Our friends over at Freedom Boats, specifically Chet Morampudi, we gave away that we raffled away that Freedom 21 Commander boat, and Mike Kelly posted some pictures right up there on the group page, and he was the big winner. He's already had it blessed, so to speak. He's taken it out. He's posted some pictures and was talking about everybody at the boatyard really helping him getting the everything set up and the power pole. Or I think he went with the other one. He went with the I'm drawing a blank on it. What's the other power pole? It's not the power pole. The Minn Kota one. Not Talon. Is it Talon?
Raptor.
Yeah, he went with the Raptor. And then I got to shout out my guy Caleb. Unsolicited, great customer service for a listener on your roofing, man. Did you see that on the group page?
Yeah, that man was happy. I liked it. I like happy people.
I like happy people too. So I wanted to give credit where credit is due to all our fine folks here. But we're going to start here. We're going to get into some overrated or no things, and that's based off of the group page. And we have some questions on knots, on seagrass, and the strangest place you ever caught a fish you didn't expect to catch that fish. But let's start right here. Usually we hold the Boatramp Confessional to a little later. It's usually kind of funny. But the Boatramp Confessional, Scott, leads to some good questions, and I think you are going to be the guy for this. But I'll read the confessional first. I started out the day launching my kayak near a flat that I love, but I always have to cross the ICW when he launches. So as much as I've kayaked, somehow I caught a wave funny, or just had brain lock. I went in and I rolled my kayak, which is never fun, but you can survive that. No big deal. There weren't any boats coming that put me in any danger or anything like that. Once I got to the flats, I started exploring, and I know he got this from us, specifically you, Scott. He said I kept going back as far as I could in a Louisiana side bayou, so maybe he was up in Sabine. I kept going. I caught a few fish, and then I lost track of where I was. I wound up just paddling until I found another opening into the bay. I was shook up a little bit, but I have questions for you guys. So first of all, glad that had a happy ending. But here are the questions. And Scott, I'm going to start with you. What all do you carry on your kayak for navigation? Let's just go one by one here.
My brain.
Well, not everybody has your brain that is on the water.
That's it. I mean, you got your phone. Yeah, your phone's got GPS on it. You can look at any kind of map on there. I mean, there's a lot of different maps.
You ever got lost like that?
No. Honestly, I mean, my dad told me a long time ago, we were on a deer lease, and I told him to drop me off over here because the wind was blowing a certain way, and I wanted to walk through this creek to get to my deer stand when I was bow hunting. And Dad's arguing with me about where he's going to drop me off. He's like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Well, if you drop me off right there, it's just 100 yards through the brush there, and I can be in my deer stand. I can come in, downwind."
Mm-hmm.
and he just didn't believe that I knew where I was. It was in the dark. It was before daylight.
Yeah.
He dropped me off. I walked to my stand. I got at my stand. I shot a deer. When he came to pick me up, he came the normal way, and I showed him, where he said, "Man, I just knew you were going to be wandering around out there." And I said, "No, and if I just turned right here, I would." And it's all in my head. And he's like, most people don't think that way. It never really occurred to me, honestly. I mean, I've been on deer leases my whole life. I can go back and draw you a map of a deer lease I was on 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I just assumed everybody was like that, but apparently not everybody is. But
Caleb, you're not like that.
I'm just thinking that Scott does most of his navigation with Rudolph.
With Rudolph?
Yeah, well, no, I mean, you can bring a GPS with you if you'd like, but I mean, your phone's as good a GPS as anything that you can carry on a handheld.
Mm-hmm. I know. Go ahead.
Other than that, I mean, I've never carried a GPS on my kayak with me.
Mm-hmm.
There's some people like I think Scott's because I'm the same way. I can almost feel directions.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can be standing in anybody's yard and probably point to you north,
south, east, west at minimum.
Yeah. Or as my wife says, up, down, left, and right.
Yeah.
Tell that woman to go take a turn north on the Beltway, see where she ends up. Nowhere, because she doesn't leave the living room until I tell her left or right.
I stopped saying north and south to my wife years and years ago. But it did beg that question. And we have some commenters on here. Jay says he calls it overkill, but he runs a chart plotter on his kayak. We're always talking about safety, but it got me thinking. I kind of know where that guy was. If he was at Sabine, I kind of know where he got lost. I think they call it four-way or something. It's over by Blue Buck. And the bayous just go in every single. Both of you guys probably know where I'm talking about. They go in every.
Through it. We don't know what you're talking about, but we've driven through it.
You've probably driven through it at minimum, so you can get lost back in there. But he had other questions. We got more questions. What all do you carry handheld? She said, I would have been dunked with my other stuff. It would have been dunked with my other stuff. And then the other question is putting it in deep water wrong? And I think he saw a post on the group page. I think Dean commented on that, that, down south, you can always find some shallow water, but that's not always the case. Sometimes you do have to cross deep water.
Well, pretty much everywhere, that's decent for kayaking, you're going to, all along where Dean is, he's got to cross the channel to get onto the flats.
Right.
And there's nothing at all wrong with putting in and crossing the ICW or whatever, as long as you're doing it safe and watching for boats.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't do it in the dark. There's too many boaters out there that run wide open and don't look around too much.
Mm-hmm.
I see it all the time. We've had kayakers hit down there where Dean is, run over by boats.
Not long ago, actually.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. And part of it's on the kayaker not having a light, a lot of times. And I see that a lot around here in Port O'Connor. I see guys launching and going across the ICW in the morning without a light on. But if he had a handheld GPS and he said, he got dunked, most of those little handheld GPSs are waterproof.
Mm-hmm.
Your phone, if your
waterproof
kayak
bag,
you should have it in a waterproof bag or at least a waterproof case, or something along those lines. So that shouldn't be a problem. But no, I mean, launching into deep water, hell, I've fished the open Gulf in a kayak.
Mm-hmm.
I've done that quite a bit. So there's nothing at all wrong with that. Knowing your limits with the kayak, whether or not you can get back into a kayak in deep water, is that's a skill that a lot of kayakers don't have these days, because we used to paddle kayaks that flipped on the regular.
Yeah, the little old first generation, second generation.
Than what they are now.
I believe those were called dugouts, John. Learned that Texas history.
They were dugouts because they were dug out.
Fire and hollowed the log out and then scraped it.
Yeah, they used like a shell to scrape it that they got off the beach, and then they put a feather in their hat. to do it. What all do you carry on your kayak then? Like let's say you're going for not just messing around for a couple hours, like you're going on your kayak, Scott.
I usually carry a couple of rods, handful of lures. I go really light. I don't want to carry a whole lot of stuff with me. I've got a little cooler bag that I carry, a little lunch pail type cooler bag, and have 2 or 3 frozen bottles of water in there and my Dr. Pepper. And that's about it. And
You and your Dr. Pepper.
I can go all day. I mean, it doesn't take much. I see way too many guys going out there with way too much stuff. I watch them at the ramp at fishing center all the time. They've got all kind of crap that they're putting in their boats. And Dean and I used to call it the Pee Wee Herman.
With a bicycle?
Yeah. I mean, they got their little horn, the little squeezy horn. They got all kind of stuff. You get your safety equipment. You got your life jacket. You got a whistle. You got a light. Even if you're going out there on an afternoon trip, it doesn't hurt to have a good light. You never know when something might happen. You might end up out there blown up onto an island somewhere in a bad weather. I used to carry, on the long trips where I was going way off into the marsh, I did carry an extra set of clothes, depending on the time of year. I would carry, just in a dry bag, having a second set of clothes and something to start a fire with. It wasn't a bad idea either. And when I went way off into the marsh, I'm talking about a full day going out there.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Hard.
Yeah.
Just a few safety items. But other than that, I mean, fishing wise, I didn't carry a whole heck of a lot. I had some topwaters. I had some soft plastics. That was pretty much it. 2 rods, because in case one of them breaks down.
Yeah.
Don't want to have to paddle back to the truck. But yeah, keep it simple. That was the whole point of kayaking to begin with, was being able to run out in the afternoon after work, get off work I used to get off at 3:00 and I'd run down to the bay, dump a kayak in, go paddle for 2 or 3 hours. Is a whole lot easier than dealing with a boat and having to clean the boat at the end of the day and towing it back in and all that stuff, putting it back up. It was just a whole lot easier to just throw a kayak in the bed of the truck, a couple things, go paddle for a few hours.
Yeah.
Relieve a little stress.
I'm with you on everything. Although Jordan mentioned something that I carry on my kayak, a little baby anchor or a little pole that you can stick in, because sometimes those tides in those back lakes and bayous, they can start moving. You want to stay put, or you just put your feet down. I know that, or beach the kayak. But I do like to just sort of stick it in the ground and you just keep fishing, that kind of thing. But I'm with you otherwise.
The only thing I should have kept in my kayak was the receipt. I wish I'd have kept that.
How is that kayak?
I don't know. It's I gave it to my brother-in-law after I used it once, and it's probably.
Oh, is that the one? Yeah, you told us that story.
Yeah, it's probably full of leaves in the back of his yard at this point.
Hey, I didn't even ask you guys about fishing lately. I usually kind of get, especially when the weather starts to change and the temperatures start to change. Caleb, I'm gonna go with you on this one because I don't know how much you've been on on the water. I know you got a lot of stuff going at Angler U. We always like to promote that. How has the fishing, has it been changing? Have the patterns been changing? This is a good time to talk about it now that we're getting pretty deep into October.
Oh, it's getting fun. The drifting for trout's pretty good. The wading for trout's pretty good. The redfishing's pretty good. The redfish have been schooling, and the trout have been much more cooperative as the time of year.
Where have you been?
Mostly between Matagorda and Surfside.
Okay, so you've been pretty much at home. Because you haven't taken any big trips.
No, I haven't been gone. Me and Compton are going on Friday, and I was really hoping he was going to tell me we're going to go south or east, but turns out we can only fish in the morning. So we'll be somewhere in Matagorda and Surfside again. Yep.
Yeah, and I was wondering what your thoughts were before we move on to the next topic on Captain Dean's hernia surgery. How did he get a hernia?
Probably about aggressively bitching on this show. I mean, he puts his whole stomach. I mean, his diaphragm goes to work whenever
he gets to work. Oh, he gets to work. There's no question about it. He gets exercise.
I think it was that cast when he was trying to beat Caleb.
Oh,
that may have done it.
Hey, I
could,
think
He
we're
worked
on to
that.
something.
He put a lot of
wasn't
oomph into it.
He wasn't complaining until after the frenzy.
that could be it. Another reason we should have age divisions.
Well, you know the thing. I got to give you credit. You haven't talked too much noise since you won this thing, but I think it's still early.
Well, I was taught to respect my elders, and when they're that level of elder, my hands are tied.
Next year we're doing accuracy.
I'm down.
Next year
I'm
we're doing
down.
accuracy.
We should. I'll bring my 5-foot platform, and we'll stand up there and get points on dinner plates or something.
Yeah, you know those yellow buckets that we had? You're gonna have to hit them. I already thought about it. 20 yards, 40 yards, and maybe more if it's a tie.
Can we just get some kids to run around out there?
Yeah, and then peg them.
Try to whack the kid. Yeah.
I thought that's what we were doing this time.
No, you did not. No, you did. That's called an excuse. That's called an excuse out there. All right.
I mean, that was since I only casted.
You did almost hit a kid.
Yeah, I should almost hit City Hall. But that's probably one of 3 casts this year that are going to be over 30 yards for me.
Yeah. Next year you're talking about?
Yeah, we none of us cast far. Well, I guess Dean does. Me and Scott don't. We don't cast far very much
on that top water.
If I'm casting far, things are going bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
me and Scott are good enough to position the boat. Dean, however, he kind of sucks and has to cast far.
How many times could you hit that yellow bait bucket from 30 yards away?
It depends on how it's
like. Let's say you get 3 tries.
If I was elevated and casting underhand like I do all day long, I would say I could probably 1 out of 3, if not 2 out of 3, to hit the actual bucket. Yeah, I'd be within 14 inches of it every time I missed it.
Well, sure. Yeah. Scott,
casting overhand's a little bit different of a story. There's a lot of variables you can't control in that.
Scott,
I feel pretty confident I can hit it pretty regular. I don't know.
think he's saying 3 for 3. He just doesn't want to say it.
I don't know about 3 for 3.
I wouldn't make any commitments after the devastation after the devastation he experienced last month either.
Put a little bit closer, and we'll start talking teacups, man. Where we can do some pitching.
Oh boy. Well, maybe we will.
I cast the fish that are big enough. My fish are so big, you got a little bit of leeway. Scott has to be a bit more accurate. He has to get in between them hard heads and that redfish in that school. I just find entire schools of redfish.
He's a lot more precise with it. All right, so this is one that we got off the group page, and it led to some other questions. So, Caleb, I think you answered this one about line color, but it led to the question: is it overrated or no? And that is the fishing truths that we're going to talk about here. Let's start with line color, because I know what you answered, but talk about the different line color here. The question had something to do with the belly color of the fish versus the top, and et cetera.
They put some thought into it.
They did.
It was logical thought. Just at the end of the day, it doesn't make a damn.
Yeah. Okay. So that's where your final answer is. Line color does not matter.
No, I got pink line, blue line, light green line, dark green line. I got line that used to be green that's white now.
Yeah.
The only time if you're somewhere where it matters, like if you're down there in the super clear water on super fickle fish, tie on a fluorocarbon leader or something. No, your line color is the last thing you need bogging your brain down.
Yeah, Scott.
It doesn't matter. I mean, if I'm casting so far that my line's going across them, I've missed my cast anyway. For the most part, as far as what I do. But I mean, tarpon are pretty fickle fish, and we throw dark green line, we throw light blue line. Like Caleb said, we got faded white line. That doesn't seem to bother them. I've never seen anywhere where I was worried about line color.
Or where you saw it might have made a difference. That's my thing. My answer was, I've never seen where it's like, this guy's throwing pink, I'm throwing moss, which I always throw moss anyway, and it made a difference. I've never seen anything like that.
There was a rave for a while. Everybody was throwing pink line all of a sudden, and the rave was they can't see it. Pink is invisible to fish, and I'm like, well, I got a pink corky that begs to differ.
Yeah.
Hey, Ed, look, there's 2 hooks just gliding through the water. I'm gonna bite those bastards. No.
But you know what happened there? I was working with the line company that did that. They came up with a pink, and I was repping for them, and they came up. It was the same wind tamer line. It was Finn's line, and it was wind tamer, and it was always green.
Mhm.
And they had Babes on the Bay, and they were sponsoring it. So they sent a whole bunch. They made some pink line. They just dyed regular wind tamer pink, and then everybody had to have that pink line after that.
Lost their minds.
It went crazy, absolutely nuts, and we had to start making it and selling it.
Yeah.
And it was the exact same line as the green, but it outsold green like 3 or 4 to 1.
Mm-hmm. What we're hearing here, and I think we all know this already, is we're all suckers. Like we're like Dean says, we should all have a printed on our foreheads. I buy shit, because it's all it is.
I'm working on taking a position at Turtle Box marketing for them, and I told them, I said, look, all dudes really need to spend money as something to justify it. A Turtle Box speaker. If an old cowboy wants one but can't afford it, but decides he can use it as a call to call his cows, that'll be a justification. He'll buy it. It's the same way. Dudes, for whatever reason, want pink crap. And when that came out and it was all fancy and a couple of their buddies got it, I think they started just coming up with reasons why. They can't just say, oh, I just like pink. It is pretty. They got it. Oh, it's visible. Oh, it does this. It does that.
It's invisible? Oh, hell, if it's invisible, yeah.
I mean, that was the thing. They were saying fish can't see it. That's why I'm using it. No.
Yeah. All right. So this one is obviously, I think we kind of know where we're going with this one, but I'll start with you, Scott. Overrated or no? Now, keep in mind, what I'm saying is overrated. Lure color.
Yeah, it's overrated. I'm light and dark. You know me. I've always gone light and dark. It doesn't really seem to matter a whole lot whether the dark color is a dark purple or it's root beer. I mean, I don't really see a whole lot of difference in that. I can stand right next to somebody else that's throwing root beer, and I can throw purple, and we'll pretty much catch the same fish. I know that there are certain situations where a slight color has made a difference, but the bass guys, when they hold up 2 worms, you got to have them in the right light to even tell they're different. And one's got blue flake and one's got silver flake. And they swear to you that the blue flake, you got to have blue flake or you're not going to catch a bass. That's crazy to me. It's all about and I tell people that on flies all the time. People get real picky about their flies when they come out with me. It's more about where it is in the presentation and does it somewhat imitate something that they would eat. And that's it. That's pretty much all there is to it.
You've told the story.
People don't want to hear, lure manufacturers don't like to hear this.
No, but you've told the story about the candy corn. You had the candy corn one, and I think with Mark, wasn't it?
It's Mark Nichols, one of the DOA writer events, and Ed was showing up. Ed brought all the goodies, and he brought the goodie bags, and every goodie bag had paddle tails and rat tails and candy corn. I mean, it was bright fluorescent yellow and orange.
It's such a good color, though.
It does.
At that time, nobody used it.
I'm not gonna lie, I want one.
Nobody used that thing. And we all opened our bags and we're looking at it, what the hell? And Ed just kind of shrugged his shoulders, says, we got a lot of it. Y'all got some. And then we had a contest. It was the biggest fish caught on candy corn. And everybody went out and threw it, and everybody caught fish.
I threw the heck out of that candy corn. It was good.
Yeah. All of a sudden,
Did you try candy corn and blue flake, though?
Come on now. You're just making stuff up. All right. So, but Caleb, here's the thing. On the lure color, he talked about maybe there's some exceptions. It hasn't happened in probably about 2 years where I'm literally standing next to a dude and either I'm catching him or he's catching him and the other is absolutely not. Most recently, I was not catching him. I was with our friend. Actually, I was with someone else, but I was near. You might have even been on the boat. I was near Pat Gardner, and we were drifting the same area, and I was throwing I think it was pink and chartreuse, which I like to throw, and nothing. He goes, you got to go to plum. And I was like, well, I got a couple of them. So I put the plum on, boom, like clockwork. I mean, now maybe they're the exceptions and they're, far reaching, very rare exceptions. But dude, I mean, the field test on that was obvious.
I've been on bites whenever you had to have a specific color, and quite often it's that plum color. I don't know what it is about it, but they want to eat it. And part of the reason that we say color doesn't matter is because we have our 2 or 3 colors that we don't ever go away from, and we can typically catch fish on those at all times. I have a lot of stuff that's purple and gold. I have a lot of stuff that's straight purple, and I have a lot of stuff that's white. I don't get away from those 3 very often. But most of the time you can catch them. Like Scott said, there's no substitute for putting it in front of their face, but there are other times when it really matters. All fall, they really like purple. In the summer, they really like the red and white. So it does matter to an extent, but it's not something to really overthink. Just get you and your buddy to both throw different colors, and whoever starts catching them to swap to that color. Color is, what color is plum? Plum is purple.
It's basically purple. It's plum. I mean, it's plum.
Harrison said it's purple with bluish flake.
There's one little thing on this that does matter from time to time is the chartreuse tail. Standing on my poling platform, 99% of the time my guys are going to throw something with a chartreuse tail, and it works almost all the time. Every now and then, the redfish, for whatever reason, will freak out about that chartreuse tail, and we'll have to switch over to something that doesn't have chartreuse, and we'll start getting eaten. I couldn't tell you what the hell that's about. There's nothing out there that's chartreuse in nature, but they love it and they eat it until they don't. But when they don't, it's obvious. It's very obvious. They're not eating that today. And the next day, the day before and the next day, they'll eat it. I have no clue what the hell that's about.
The other
I think sometimes those little chartreuse tails or the lighter colored tails, if they're keying on smaller stuff, it'll make them hit it. I don't know what would scare them from it. I don't throw much stuff with chartreuse tails though. Now that I'm thinking about it, I throw very little that has a chartreuse tail on it.
Oh, I throw a lot, but I'm in clearer water, and maybe that's a difference. I don't know. I throw it a lot. Now, this is one that Scott in the past has talked about this and laid out a terrific case why the color of a topwater doesn't matter. Scott, I know you remember this. You've done it. You've said it a couple of times. Like from the bottom, where a fish is, the color of a topwater, you make so much sense when you say it's just the image, it's the profile, it's the what it's doing on the water. But I'm here to tell you, man, same thing. I've seen some with different colors on the topwater where I'm like, I'll be damned. It did seem to matter in these cases. Now maybe it was just some was on the fish and some weren't.
The only time I see it matter is with a silver or a gold on sunny days, and you get a little more flash out of that silver or gold. But other than that, get a swimming pool, go throw a handful of topwaters in there in all different colors, swim down to the bottom, look up at them. Tell me what color they are. You can't.
No, you lay out a great case. I'm just saying, again, the field tests seem to be occasionally like it matters.
Occasionally, the silver, I had a buddy that's all he threw. He threw silver all the time. I was always throwing my redfish, which is bone on the bottom and dark on the top. I don't know why. That doesn't matter, but I used to throw that a lot. And there were days when him and his little pink topwater with the silver sides would be whooping my butt. But it was almost always on up into the day when the sun was out, a real clear day, and that silver would flash a little bit more, I guess, and attract some more strikes than what I was getting.
Yeah, I think topwater is 100% of the sound it makes and the colors on its side and how they're flashing. When I was down south with Wayne and everybody, I had the only, it's like an iridescent pearl in that Mansfield knocker he has. I'm the only one that had one because it was in prototype, and I was kicking people's asses, and there was nothing they could do about it, and I wasn't letting them use it.
Of course you weren't. All right, let's move on. Overrated or no? Changing out the hooks on your topwaters, Caleb? I think what the point is here, though.
Oh, you're talking about the single hooks to the treble hooks?
Yeah, the single hooks versus treble. Might you lose more fish? Hookups.
I don't know because I don't do that. I don't fish heavy grass enough for it to matter. You know, Scott says the hookup ratio is better. I like six pointy spots on my topwaters, but I don't. If I'm changing out hooks, I'm putting a heavier hook on it for bigger redfish that are straightening hooks out. I'm not going to a inline ever.
Yeah, Scott, I think it does matter, especially down south.
It matters if you're going to fish anywhere that's got any kind of floating grass. It makes a difference because as soon as you get a little piece of grass on a treble hook, that lure changes its action completely. And so I've never noticed that I get fewer hookups with a single versus the treble, and I feel like they actually get it in their mouth a little bit better.
I do too. I think it matters. I think you might get more hookups, or at least easier hookups with a single drop. And I got 9 sitting on my workbench over here that I got to change out. Two hooks on each because my wife is all of a sudden a sicko on the topwaters, and I got to change them all out. I'm going to because it does matter. Here's the other thing. I think it matters just moving around the boat. Those treble hooks hook on everything, man. Like everything. And the single drops don't.
I was going to say, out of everybody that I see on Facebook that's got a hook in their hand,
it's a treble.
They're getting the hook out, and we got somebody's hooked. It's always a treble hook, always. And
your pants, your shirt, everything.
Caleb likes 6 sticky pointy things on there. Well, that's 6 of them that can get you instead of 2. And they do. I land enough fish for customers, and they're thrashing around. And a lot of times customers overreact when the fish gets close to the boat. Less chance of me getting hooked. When they're slinging a rod around them with their buddy standing next to them, a whole lot less chance of them hooking their buddy.
Yeah.
Steve resembles that statement.
Oh yeah. How many times?
Hey, a couple.
And by a couple, you mean
some of them were self-inflicted.
Well, of course.
Yeah. He's been stuck a couple of times.
Yeah, I think it's worth it, and it makes a difference just that alone. All right, one more here on the overrated or no, and then we're going to get to another topic here from our listeners. Throwing a topwater with a spinning reel is more difficult.
Depends on how often you've done it. Camille can work a topwater with a spinning reel just fine, but that's all she throws. That's all she's ever done. I fish with a lot of guys out of Florida. The only thing they throw is spinning rods. They can work it just fine. Personally, no. I mean, I can't work a topwater with a spinning rod. It just don't work for me.
Yeah.
There's nothing I can do to make a little small topwater dance with a spinning rod the way I can with a bait caster.
Was that elevator music, Caleb?
No, it was a Jeopardy theme song.
Oh, okay. Didn't make it out. Do you work? Jan learned everything on the spinning reel, so she can now work it. So she's probably going down that same road where she's going to be able to do it with a spinning reel. I don't do it that much. I'm kind of with Caleb. So I guess it does make a difference, just a matter of habit.
We're throwing a spinning reel with the topwaters, like saying, cow nuts are pretty good to eat, but you just got to do them the right way. Like, it's already more effort than it's worth it to get it to work.
Yeah. By the way, I thought I muted my mic right there when I coughed.
I would say it's like cooking a brisket, but then you would roast me. So
I would roast you. You don't roast a brisket. That's for dang sure. All right. So here's another one from our friends. How knots affect different baits and presentations. The question is this: do you guys have a different knot? Caleb, you're starting on this. Do you guys have a different knot you tie depending on the type of lure that you are throwing, or do you have just one that's an old faithful knot that you tie everything with?
I use a loop knot, but I only use it whenever I'm throwing a leader. If I'm throwing a leader, it's a loop knot every time. If I'm not, I use I call it a double polymer. I use it on quirkies, top waters, popping corks, jig heads, everything. That once I find a knot that doesn't let me down, I never ever get away from it. So the only time that I'm not using that Palomar is if I'm throwing a leader on particularly a quirky. I don't use a leader on much else but a quirky.
I think this is overthought, Scott. I really do. I think leaders occasionally, depending on the lure, are overthought as well. I could be dead wrong, and you could call me stupid, and that's fine. I think if you have confidence in a knot, with the way that the baits are now, they're going to work great. And it's about finding the fish and working your bait. And the knot, to me, is overrated. I don't know what you think on that.
On some things, I've tried working a topwater with a loop knot and without. I really don't see a whole lot of difference in that. You'll hear people tell all the time, "Oh, you need a loop knot so it can swing more free."
Yeah,
you're not that tight to it anyway. You should be, it's
right.
It's doing its dance on a limp line in between twitches. So flies, a lot of times I do the loop knot on flies just because they're so small and the line can't affect that. I really do think that they work better with a loop knot instead of being stiff and tight to it. The little terrorize that I use on the juvenile tarpon, loop knot every time. That lure doesn't have a whole lot of action to it to begin with, but when you tie it tight, it loses some action. It has a little bit of vibration to it if you have it on a loop knot. I've sat there and held it in the current and looked at it. That's a way to experiment. Play with, whatever your favorite lures are in different situations. Put them in the water and see what they do with both knots. And I've noticed that terrorize does have a little better action with a loop knot.
What just freaks me out is when people use they tie a loop knot with braid. Like, I can't wrap my head around why we're doing
that.
That
Makes no sense.
Yeah.
Because the point of the loop knot is your fluoro, your mono is stiffer and it's letting it work. Braid is a wet noodle. It's going to do whatever you want to do. To me, it just I want to say even Pat does it. Like, I'm not like even talking trash to like you
just don't get it.
They challenged.
Yeah.
I think even Pat does it. I can't wrap my head around why you would ever do that.
Yeah.
What pound leader do you find best for quirky suspending hard baits? 25 to 30 pound, assuming you use fluoro. Whatever's in my pocket. Mono most of the time, just because it's a shock leader. It's for the stretch in it. Fluoro if we're just around a ton of shell and having problems with cutting off.
Maybe that's it. Go ahead.
Yeah, mono's 95% of the time, just because it's cheap. I buy big game. I buy these like spools that look like a Coke can, and I've never made it past the first layer before I lose the damn spool. But I paid $6 for it.
Maybe that's it, Scott. For me, is I've just been throwing braid for so long now, and it's so pliable and so light. I don't worry about it. I don't feel like I'm catching less fish. I don't feel like the bait is working any harder or anything.
I'll say back to the tarpon thing. We're using minimum 40 pound. Even when I'm fishing for those juveniles, that's 40 pound fluorocarbon. And yes, I do use fluorocarbon on that because it's more abrasion resistant, and that's the whole reason we're using 40 pound on tarpon is because they're very abrasive with their little miniature teeth or whatever the hell it is that you want to call it, the sandpaper lip that they've got. And then when we get bigger, I'm using 80. So yeah, I need a loop knot on there because that 80 pounds pretty damn stiff, and you tie it tight to a lure, it can affect if the knot gets a little bit sideways on there, it gets hit and the knot just moves over a little bit, but it's still tight to the eye. Then your lure runs crooked. So having the loop knot on there keeps things straight. A little bit more active.
Yeah, and so I think we've answered that question, but maybe not because we had varying answers. All right, so last week this came from a listener. He DM'd me. By the way, somebody else DM'd me, Scott. I was talking about I saw those 3 or 4 schools of tarpon on the North Jetty down in Aransas, and it just blew my mind. And I was trying to throw everything, trying to get one to look at it. He said he saw the same thing a week later. So the tarpon are kind of running up and down those jetties right now, man. That's
they're there all the time.
Yeah.
They're there all the damn time. People just don't notice them.
Mm-hmm.
I would think, as much as you've listened to me, that you might have had an idea how to catch them.
No, I did, but I didn't have the what's it called? The I'm gonna
Want
put them in
to? You didn't have the want to?
no, well that too. No, I always have the want to. What's that bait buster? I didn't have the bait buster.
Bait busters, terrorize.
Mm-hmm.
They'll eat a lot of things. They'll eat a little
Mhm.
soft plastic.
Oh, I was throwing soft plastic like a mofo. I'm
If
telling
it's
you.
presented in the right way,
I
they'll
was
eat it.
throwing the hell out of the soft plastic. Jan was going, "What are you doing?" Because I was on the trolling motor and I was going back and forth, and you can't catch up to them. But I was trying to see like the next school. And I was throwing like a mofo, man. They didn't have anything, so I'm going to put a couple bait busters in my boat, just for that reason. So we were talking last week anyway. That this is how this started about the oyster reefs. Caleb, you weren't here, but there's a big movement for was it 15 billion oyster reefs or something like that. Anyway, it was in the billions oysters that they're gonna try to get started, and then talking about some of the mangroves, how healthy the mangroves are. So like things are starting to come together in terms of at least starting, outside of human error and humans affecting it, for the habitat to get a little healthier. So I got a question with that in mind. And Scott, I'm going to start with you on this one. They said, what about seagrass? I have my thoughts, and I think that's maybe a longer shot for seagrass to grow. And I can back it up here in a minute, but they said, well, okay, oysters, they're trying, mangroves are coming back. Seagrass is taking a big hit. What is the prospect of seagrass ever coming back to some semblance of what it was, not 30 years ago, but in recent years?
All you got to do is look at West Galveston Bay. And West Galveston Bay was devoid of any grass. There was nothing there. Nothing. And they came along and they planted some over on the Galveston shoreline in the state park. They fenced it off. It was just little circles about, I don't know, they were probably at 30, 40 foot long little circles.
Mm-hmm.
And they protected it, fenced it off, planted the grass in there. Within a few years, it was expanded outside the fences. And then we had Hurricane Ike, which blew my mind. I didn't know that seagrass is seeded.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought that they were creeping grass, that they just expanded. But apparently they do seed.
Mm-hmm.
And Ike happened to hit at the same time as the seeding, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
And next thing you know, we got grass growing all along the north shoreline of West Bay. Acres and acres of it. So yes, it's possible, but then you got to leave it alone.
Yeah.
You can't keep running over it. You can't keep cutting it up. It's got to have the right kind of bottom in order for it to grow. And it's just not going to grow in some places. When I first started going to Matagorda years ago, that south shoreline was full of grass. There was grass everywhere over there. And on up until probably 10, 15 years ago, there was grass there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why it all went away, because there's really not that much shallow running over there, cutting up the grass like it is.
Not then, anyway.
Not really.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know exactly what happened there. I suspect that it had a lot to do with all the oystering that was going on, and all the oyster boats that absolutely raped East Bay over there, created a lot of silt and started to bottom up so much that maybe the sunlight didn't get to the grass and the silt overtook the grass. That would be my guess. Supposedly that's what happened in Galveston ages and ages ago. West Bay was solid grass, East Bay was grass, and then they started dredging the intercoastal and doing all the spoils from the intercoastal and all the dredging, and the grass went away. I think that that's probably a big part of what happened there. As far as down south, I don't know what has happened over the years, but Port O'Connor used to just have beautiful grass beds all along every shoreline, and they had these big white sand pockets in them, and we called potholes. And over the years, all that kind of went away, and it's just solid grass now. There's not as many. There's a pothole here and there, but it's not like it used to be. It used to look like a golf course with sand traps.
Yeah.
And all those they're gone. I don't know why. Don't understand exactly what happened there. But the big grass flats, like around Dean and down south, people plowing through them with their props, cutting them
Bingo.
up, is the biggest detriment to
Yep.
grass down there. If there was a way that we could get that to stop, I think we'd be all right.
No, that's exactly what I was thinking. Shallow running boats, man. Shallow. And I started fishing East Matagorda Bay really in the 80s and really hit it hard in the 90s. And Scott, you're 100% right. Caleb, I don't know how much you remember when you first got into East Matagorda Bay, but I remember with Mike Mosley, fishing with him and my buddy Tommy, Patrick's dad. And there was Seagrass, man, and all up and down that thing, and it was gorgeous. And then I think Scott's philosophy is the best.
That south shoreline was gin clear. You couldn't throw a corky in it. It was too damn thick to do it.
Yeah.
You could catch fish everywhere. It was awesome. I think Scott's onto something, but I don't know if it's the oyster boats as much as it was several ill-timed floods that came in from Caney and Colorado and filled it up, and with the silt. But I think the silt's what snuffed it out there at the end.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, and that North Shoreline and West Galveston, that's where I got my introduction to sight casting redfish. It was clear water with redfish everywhere. It was good stuff.
Yeah. Now I will say I did a little bit of research on this Sunday, just piddling around, like in terms of like scientifically doing it, like you can do with mangroves and oysters. It is really expensive from everything I read. So it's going to have to be almost like natural occurrences and then block off some areas, which, boy, that's going to go over nicely. You start blocking over big chunks of bays like, oh, you can't fish here for 2 years or whatever it is. That's not going to go over well. But that's the only way it's going to happen, I think, is naturally. And so we'll see. But seagrass it's not off the table. It's just a lot more difficult, especially with the shallow water running boats. And frankly, I'm not going to give up mine. You say it's really about the people behind the wheel, right? I mean, it's not about the boat.
About the shallow running boat.
Yeah,
running across it. That's not the problem.
Right.
It's the shallow water boats that drift up in there and then plow their way back out.
Yeah,
and you can see it. I saw it this past week over and over again in a place over here that used to just be solid grass was Mule Slough.
Mm-hmm.
Mule was a beautiful grass bed, huge, and now it's got very little grass in it. And I saw the people doing it. They're drifting and then they just plow across it.
Mm-hmm.
And
to get up,
not even to get up, just to go make another drift.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and they're just kind of moving along. They're just slow and easy, and I guess they think they're doing it right. But I mean, look behind your boat, and you see that uprooted grass. That's actually illegal.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you got to, but jack it up, trim it out. Don't put very much prop in the water if you absolutely have to.
Right. And treat it like you would oyster shell. You wouldn't do that with oyster shell. You know what I mean? If you get into a grass bed, I've told several people this. If you didn't get into the shallow grass, what would you do if that was all oyster? You wouldn't be doing that. You wouldn't be doing that. That's for damn sure.
Bet me.
Well, you would. Well, you would. Yes, I would.
Have I mentioned Jade Boats has wonderful customer service?
All those props going everywhere. All right, so this is another one here that I enjoyed because I think it came from either a friend or somebody. You saw that kid. I guess it's called Little Bay over in Rockport, which is really just like jet skiers and skiers and a lot of oyster and a bunch of houses around. It's just like the recreational part before you get into some other areas. Little kid was fishing and caught a snook in Little Bay, and it got this person thinking about the strangest place you caught a fish you didn't expect to catch that fish. I had one that come to mind, but let's say. Well, I'll tell you mine. So I was drifting a flat not too long ago, and I know they're there, but you don't really expect it to happen. And I caught a sheep's head, like in the middle of like 7 feet water, just drifting across. I went from a 1.5 feet to 7 feet, just drifting, trying to find a deeper cut. And right in the middle of it, I caught a sheep's head, and it's not normally something. It's normally they're on something or some barnacles or some sort of structure or something. And this was just open bay, caught a sheephead, and I went, well, you don't see that every day, but something like that. This kid was in Little Bay, caught a snook right in the middle of basically downtown Rockport, Scott.
Yeah, I saw all the pictures. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's more and more snook, going to be caught in different places. Mine would probably be a little tarpon that I got over in a little bitty bayou at Greens in West Matagorda Bay. I was way back there fly fishing and saw 2 tarpon swimming along and threw at them with a little bitty fly meant for redfish, and they ate it. One of them ate it and took off. Of course, I wasn't rigged for it, so it didn't last long. But that was an oddity. I was standing in like knee-deep water way back in the back end of one of the little bayous leading into a lake. That one was kind of odd. One of the craziest ones I ever heard of, though, was Eric Glass down there in South Bay in Port Isabel. He's poling and saw something coming, told his customer, get ready to cast. It's coming. I don't know what it is. It's moving really fast. It's not a jack. I have no idea what it is. Just cast. And his customer made a good cast and hooked up. And it was a very large mahi.
A mahi?
In knee-deep water in South Bay.
That's lost.
Crazy. That's the craziest one. That's by far the craziest one I've ever heard on the Texas coast.
How did that happen? Like, how the hell did that happen?
I mean, there's no fences out there. They can be anywhere.
It's a big weed line. He got lost in the weeds and just kept going.
Who knows? But that was one lost son of a gun, man. I mean, he's just running around out there going, man, where is the deep water at?
Yeah. There's got to be a drop off somewhere. Now, one thing, Caleb, before you give me yours, the one thing that you do catch a lot in bays, often, I shouldn't say a lot, is jacks. You can catch baby, little small jacks. People think it's a perch or something or whatever. I've seen jacks caught in the bays.
You can catch full ass grown and grandpa
well,
jacks.
No, I'm talking about like a flat, like just a little grass.
Oh yeah,
flat.
Yeah. I've had many a tournament ate up by very large jacks on the flats down by Army Hole. Sons of a gun. I had one gold corky that I liked too. I mean, honestly, I'm trying to be humble here, but I ain't never been anywhere that I didn't know that ever fish that was there. So I can't really say I've ever.
In other words, you haven't caught something really unusual.
I caught a 42-pound wahoo in the Colorado River, but I knew that sun gun was there too.
How?
like this, John.
No. How did you know?
Oh, how I know it was there?
Yeah.
Just years of experience and
his imagination.
Lying your ass off.
Studying the NOAA charts before I went. And
by the way, is that a true story?
No,
I didn't think so. Now
I did have one. Roger Clemens' son was fishing with me one time and way up the Brazos, and we were fishing for the reds and looking for tarpon up there. Place that I normally would find stuff like that way up. I mean, way above 2004 bridge, way up there. And we caught a Spanish mackerel.
Oh, wow.
That was an oddity.
Now,
had quite a few oddball things happen like that.
I think you've had this experience, and I didn't personally have it, but I saw it done. A sailfish off the end of the jetties. I've seen a sailfish caught.
Well,
and I think, didn't you say you had one like that?
That was Stephen Reed.
Yeah.
That's not the one I was thinking of. The 900-pound tiger shark in the jetties over there.
Yeah,
I didn't see that one coming. And me and Cade were shark fishing there the day before, and Cade was pissed. He's like, "Wait a minute." So we caught 3-footers all day, and that was there. Like, and I've seen several tarpon like in the bay, which happens, but they're not really normal to catch. I think I shared the story a couple of years ago with you, Scott, where I was like actually it was in East Matagorda, and I'll be damned. I was like, that looks like, no, it can't be a tarpon, is it? Then you see it again. Oh yeah, that's a tarpon right in the middle of East Matagorda Bay.
Yeah,
we put up
they're around.
We put up 2 videos, Nangler U, where Wayne caught snook, tarpon, and trout all in the same wade while wade fishing. I want to move down there.
Yeah.
A tarpon, a snook, and a trout all in the same wade 2 days in a row.
Well, I mean, tarpon, I understand. The sailfish was an oddity, but they are there. I mean, and you see these old pictures, and I'm kind of a weirdo about this, but I'm sure you guys see them too, of like back in the day pictures from the 50s and 60s of some dude holding up a 700-pound grouper or something. And it's like, yeah, caught it off a Bob Hall Pier. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What's going on?
They
Big
used
giant.
to catch big live groupers. They used to catch them off the jetties all the time. Way back.
What's going? Oh, I need those days to come back. Oh man! All right. So, what's going on Angler U?
Man, we're making moves, John.
Mhm.
About to change the entire platform. The website's gonna be a lot more streamlined, but more importantly, I have spent the last week and a half doing nothing but building apps for it. So we're gonna
So
move
you
over to
committed
app
to that?
based. Wait, I am committed, dude. Believe me, I'm committed. I've
No, I
committed to
know.
not make money on this thing for the next 10 years, apparently,
No,
too.
I know. Those things get expensive. Trust me. Look who you're talking about with all this crap I'm doing on this thing. And as far as you, Scott, in terms of what you're fishing now, is it over yet with tarpon?
No, they're still sticking around. And I talked to one of the tarpon gurus down here today, and he was out last Tuesday, I guess it was, and he saw a whole bunch of fish. And he said the oddity of it was they were headed north,
Coming in.
which
They're
doesn't
coming
make
in.
which doesn't make any sense at all to any of us. But yeah, I've got Collins with Sawgrass rods. He's coming in Wednesday evening, and we're going to go fish Thursday. We're going to go out there and see if we can still find them. As long as the water temperature stays up, they're going to stick around for a while. I mean,
It's also been a weird.
go anywhere.
Sorry, it's also been kind of a weird year on the beachfront and near shore. Everything sounded and maybe it's just me, Scott. You tell me, but everything seemed to kind of start late.
I don't know if it started all that much later, but we've still got real warm water. It got hot real quick this year, and it stayed really hot, and it really hasn't cooled off much. And I'm still hearing some reports of tarpon up towards Galveston. So I mean, we still got a little bit of time. One good front, and they're gone. That water temperature does a sudden dip. We get a good, strong cold front that lasts for 2 or 3 days, and it's going to dip it pretty quick, and then they're going to move down south. I'm kicking around since I got this new tarpon boat. Maybe making me a little run down to Mansfield at some point and go meet up with them as they go south.
Oh, that'd be sweet. How long a run on the boat is it?
I'm talking about trailering the boat down to Mansfield, and then
I thought you were going to run like just for an adventure.
No, I'll
Yeah.
run down there and stay at a buddy's place and make a couple runs out through their jetties and go intercept them as they head back to Mexico. They think they got away from me.
Dibs.
Yeah, no kidding. By the way, did you sell your general? Do you need it?
General is still for sale.
Mm-hmm.
It's sitting in the yard as we speak, and it's in excellent shape. Got 120 hours on it. I mean, I didn't let Caleb drive it once. And
I'm going to drive the tarpon boat.
It still has all the paint on the skeg. I mean, the only thing that boat has done is go out there between the jetties and run up down the beachfront.
All right. Well, I'm glad I mentioned that. We need to get that
hasn't
sold.
been run hard.
Great boat.
It's an excellent boat.
Yeah, it's a great boat. It really is.
If you need some room to fish several people, I fished 5 people off of it one day, and everybody casting at the same time, and 5 guys slinging rods, and nobody's in anybody's way.
Yeah. Water temperature 78.3 right now. I'm looking at it right now on my app down in Port Aransas. So still pretty good. All right. What would Scott do? What would Caleb do? Like I said, I'm looking at the app, Caleb. What would you recommend right now? I like to say dealer's choice, but there have been some weird kind of funky winds that have messed with some stuff.
I think by the time the weekend gets here, you're going to be in solid shape. Scott and I are going to say the same thing. Do anything you want. I'm probably going sight casting, but drift in the middle, wading the shorelines. It's not hard to decide what to do this time of year. As long as the wind isn't nuking, you can do whatever you want. And whenever I looked, it was single digits and looks like a good time to me.
Are you seeing birds?
A little bit here and there. It's not heavy action, but there are birds popping up here and there.
70, man, great 80 degrees at noon on Friday, 83 degrees on noon on Saturday. It's going to be beautiful, beautiful temperatures anyway. Scott, what are you going to do? A little bit windy on late Saturday, but other than that, it looks like kind of what Caleb said.
Yeah, I'm gonna go out and play with these tarpon. I know the jacks are still here, so we may go out and just mess with jacks with fly rods or something. But yeah, Thursday and Friday look excellent. 1.5 feet at 6 to 7 seconds, and winds less than 10 miles an hour. I got no place I'd rather be than on the beachfront.
Yeah, man, I do
if I was
too.
going in the bays, I mean,
You got customers Friday morning?
I think I might still have Collins. I'm not sure, but I don't think
Me
I
and
have
Compton are looking for somebody's stuff to tear up Friday morning.
Bring your own stuff. Bring your own stuff.
As far as the bays go, I mean, this last weekend, man, that wind got up. I'd had that great day on Tuesday, and then the wind started blowing, and the tides went right straight back up. I mean, they were nice and low, and the schools were going off, and everything was great. It looks like they're coming back down again now. So, I mean, the low tides at a little less than a foot right now. So,
John, it's going to be hard to replicate.
Out a little bit.
It's going to be hard to replicate how good it was last Saturday. It's going to be tough.
Get out of here.
It was awful.
It was awful.
A Texas loss and an Alabama loss.
Oh, that.
Hey,
man, don't look now. Don't, because fishing was not it last weekend. That's for damn sure. Oh, by the way, appreciate Scott. You texted me, on the Big Aggies win. Oh, that's right, you didn't. Scott only text me when the Aggies lose. He's that guy.
Let's
not looking for in that fight. I don't.
Let's
just like good games.
Now, because I really think he's going to be texting you on Thanksgiving. I really think he is.
I think he's going to be texting me on Thanksgiving. hey, I'm just enjoying the ride. I know how it's going to end up. It's going to be a crash and burn. I'm heading straight T-boning the Jetties on that one. But as long as the Aggies win until they get to Texas,
Aggies going to do Aggies things eventually.
Yes, exactly. That's what I call it. I'm T-boning the Jetties. It's just a fun ride right now.
Yeah. I did not. I mean, honestly, I had Saturday. I had two guys out, and one of them was a Georgia fan, and I was like, "Man, I think your boy's going to take it hard today. Later this afternoon."
Yeah.
I was off on that one. I'm glad they didn't put any money on that sucker.
I bet on both those games and won both bets. Texas,
the Aggies and the Georgia.
No, Texas and Alabama.
Oh, okay.
I had no doubt Tennessee was going to beat Alabama, and I had no doubt that Georgia was going to beat Texas. I don't know why.
I had doubt on Georgia. I was with you on Tennessee. I said it on the radio show.
Texas is too up in the air on their quarterback. They won't let a guy get settled in.
Yeah. But no, I was surprised, and I'm not going to be surprised. I'll be extremely surprised if the Aggies can pull it out on day after Thanksgiving.
Do the Aggies beat the Tigers? Do the Aggies beat the Tigers?
That's the one. And
I think the Aggies beat the Tigers.
And James Phillips is saying, go with the GEAUX Tigers. I love you, James, but not this Saturday. That's for damn sure.
And on another topic, has there ever been a World Series where both teams lost?
I'm looking for one of those.
Because I need that.
I'm cheering for Bedlam. I'm actually kind of – I hate the Dodgers and I hate the Yankees, but I'm kind of cheering for the Dodgers because I like Shohei.
I'm kind of cheering for the Yankees because I hate the Dodgers even more. And my kid doesn't understand it. I'm like, you weren't here.
But you like Shohei?
Yeah, I mean, seems like a nice guy and everything, but he wears a blue and white cap, so screw him.
Well, as opposed to pinstripes?
All I'm saying is at least root for the people in our division because the Dodgers are some of that. What homeboy with the glasses that made the cry face to
Kelly. What's his name?
Joe Kelly.
Yeah, Joe Kelly.
Yeah. No, that guy. I don't even know if he plays for Dodgers anymore. I don't care, but I still hate the Dodgers.
All right. What a good show, and appreciate you guys. And I'll leave it with this. With Perry is leaving the final comment. Giga Maggies, BTHOLSU. Whoop. Appreciate you guys listening. You guys have been fantastic. Obviously, Scott and Caleb are always on top of their game. We're going to do it again next week. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to Join the Facebook group page. Captain Dean is going to be back with, well, I guess they're not removing a hernia. Whatever they're going to do to the hernia, he's going to give birth to a hernia, and he'll be back next week. And you guys hopefully will as well. Until then, catch him up. We will talk to you next time.
The hell
Hey,
with
John.
those HIPAA laws.
Hey, John, 2 fish are sitting in a tank.